2022 Planning and Zoning Commission meeting to order. We are virtual this evening, and welcome everyone to the meeting. Nice to see you. Could we establish a quorum, please?
Mr. Wathers?
I am here.
Ms. Kirkner?
Here.
Mr. Lester?
Here.
Mr. Hoff?
Here.
Mr. Kane?
Here.
Commissioner Wayne?
Physically here, mentally, I'm not sure. I'm in the middle of budget.
Secretary Eisenberg?
Here.
Mr. Chair, please let the record reflect that 6 members are present and we do have a quorum.
Thank you very much. Let's stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Moving on to item 4, review and approval of the agenda. Are there any other changes to the agenda this evening?
There are no changes to this evening's agenda.
Very good. Be happy to entertain a motion for approval.
I move that we approve the agenda.
I'll second.
All right. We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Very good. Unanimously approved. Next item, review and approval of the minutes from March 15th, 2022. Anyone have any edits or corrections that need to be made to those? If not, be happy to entertain a motion for approval.
I move we approve the minutes from March 15th.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All right. We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Anyone opposed? They stand approved. Moving on to item 6, administrative report. Madam Secretary.
So not just an administrative report, I'm just going to do a quick introduction. Actually, we have 2 exciting topics for you this evening. One is the agricultural conservation zoning text. This is the last of it, folks. This will finish up the review and necessary amendments to our zoning code. We would have hit all the topics as well as parts of chapter 155, which are our subdivision and site plan. So this has been a multi-year process, so we're happy to bring to you the beginning of the end of the comprehensive rezoning effort. Price Wagner will go ahead and tell you what we've been doing over the last 6 months or so with that. And then finally, a program that we are extremely proud to be kicking off in Carroll County, the Finksburg Facade Improvement Program. Claire Stewart will be presenting that to you. We're really excited to bring this opportunity to the Finksburg community for renovations, exterior renovations, to a lot of the commercial businesses along the 140 corridor. So she'll show you that and what we've been doing in that community. And then that's it. So won't keep you too late tonight. And I appreciate you all being here. And that's all I have.
Very good. Thank you. Unless there's any other administrative matters, we will move on to item 7, agricultural and conservation zoning text. The introduction is to be provided by Price Wagner. So Mr. Wagner, we'll turn it over to you.
Yeah, so before Price gets started, so again, as I said, this is the end of our several year long effort to get the zoning code amended and rewritten in areas and to really just bring things up to date. Price is going to share with you what came out of the work group. Commissioner Wance had this exact presentation the other week in front of the Board of County Commissioners, so they're up to speed as well. But now it's time to be with the Planning Commission. So the process, as we've done in the past, is what we've called concept team or some type of work group. For the commercial, industrial, and employment campus, we reached out to various business members, surveyors in the community to get their feedback. With the residential text, we worked with the community to get their input prior to coming to Planning Commission. And just like with those 2 efforts, this effort, we had an agricultural conservation work group. So Price is going to walk you through the last 6 months with that group and what their recommendations are with the plan to the Planning Commission, and what we call the concept team, which is our internal working team that's going to get into the nitty gritty. In order to get this effort complete before these commissioners step down, we think it's really important that we parallel this process with our internal concept team. So we'll be bringing items to you as soon as they've been discussed with our internal concept team, so that way we can keep moving this along and get this to this Board of County Commissioners in plenty of time before their terms end. So with that, Price Wagner, who was really the project lead on this, is going to give you the report of what's been going on. So thank you, Price.
Thank you, Linda. As she said, yes, we briefed the county commission last week, gave a sort of overview of what our work group talked about over the last 6 months. And this is pretty much, as you said, the exact same presentation for this portion. What we all talked about, some of the ideas, concerns that came about. So, as obviously, as Linda said, and as you all know, agriculture and conservation is the bigger portion of our zoning districts in the county, with roughly 88% of our county zone either agricultural or conservation. And we had our work group that started, and they're pretty much, as Linda said, their task was to bring in recommendations and to the concept team, and those recommendations came about from the research that staff did on areas that we thought appear to have sometimes issues or concerns, and see if there's anything that needs to be changed. So right now, concept team is going over those recommendations to look at the text and make changes as needed based on those recommendations, and as well as look at the use table and update the use tables. So we'll be bringing things back to the Planning Commission. And of course, obviously the final thing will be for the Planning Commission to make a recommendation after multiple work groups to the Board of County Commissioners for them to move forward and hopefully doing a work group, it's not work group, sorry, work sessions to adopt the text amendments we were looking to do. So as Linda said, yes, we had multiple areas of people involved. We had Farm Bureau and AgPres, Carroll County Bar Association. We had the University of Maryland Ag Extension. We had the Carroll County Realtors Associations, Grow and Fortify, somebody from Carroll County Economic Development, particularly in the agritourism sector. Carroll County AgPres program again. We had that in twice for some reason, but the AgPres board and was members also the same as the Farm Bureau member. Department of Land and Resource Management, Zoning Administration, the attorneys, county attorney's office, the health department, of course, the Department of Planning, and finally we had a representative from the Board of Zoning Appeals, and Commissioner Weaver sat in on a couple of our meetings, probably four of the six. So the biggest things were the trends and challenges that we looked at that came about were contractor equipment storage yards, country inns, commercial kennels, solar energy, agritourism, temporary seasonal uses, commercial camping, and accessory dwelling units. We actually sort of went in that order. As for the big challenge for contractor equipment storage, we were receiving a lot of variances that came with somebody applying to the BZA for contract equipment storage. So the thought was, should we introduce a minimum lot size? And in the short of things, the work group did decide, yes, let's recommend a minimum lot size be brought to the concept team and for us to talk about, introducing a minimum lot size. Also, the other big thing was screening requirements for the contract equipment storage yards. Right now, the way our code is written is adjacent to similar land uses require screening. Obviously, contract equipment storage against anything that is residential, private, public roads, that type of thing would need screening, but the screening requirements are a little bit different. A Class A is required if it's against any adjacent or adjacent to a public or private street. But however, if it's adjacent to residentially zoned properties, as they're only looking to be a 15-foot landscape strip, whereas a Class A is considered a full, whether it's a fencing or full opaque, not able to see at all. So we're looking to bring that up to date and bring those requirements the same. So the same as against adjacent to public and private streets or commercial industrial areas, we're looking to bring the residential portion up to the same stringent or the same requirements. So anything that's in contracted equipment storage hopefully would have more screening than less when it comes to something that's based against to a residential area. And going back to why we're looking at maybe we're increasing the lot size. In these two maps, as you'll see, the number of variances that were requested were 25. And out of those 25, majority of those were on properties that were 5 acres or less. So the thought from the work group brought forward to concept team is, okay, let's look at a minimum lot size of 5 acres for contracted equipment storage to hopefully minimize the number of variances that may come about. So again, we're going to introduce a minimum lot size of 5 acres. Indoor and outdoor contracted equipment storage are treated the same. And then the screening requirements for residential uses and zones should align with the requirements for industrial and public private street screening. Another big one that we focused on, or we had talk about is, and as some of the Plan Commission have know, is the country inns. The big challenge is the distinction between country inns and bed and breakfasts. Also thinking of creating a standalone use and definition from event facilities, and then requests are still coming in. So you'll sort of see in our definition for country inn and bed and breakfast, they are relatively the same. So the big recommendation is to potentially combine those two definitions, but when it comes to country inns, remove the aspect of providing catering facilities for banquets and the like. So again, here's the recommendation. Combine the country inn and bed and breakfast, and I believe we actually just now, I think our concept team was talking, I think we're just going to call it bed and breakfast instead of country inn / B&B. It's going to be just bed and breakfast. Remove the providing meals to non-guest requirement from combining country inn and bed and breakfast. That goes along with the aspect of catering facility, that type of thing for events. And we're looking to create a new standalone use called event and banquet facility based on the definition we already have in our code, which is the catering establishment banquet facility. The facility will be closed to the public and by invitation only. And then it will be a conditional use in the ag zone and prohibited in the conservation zone. That is the recommendation from the work group to the concept team. Commercial kennels, sort of the same, looking at, should we introduce a minimum lot size? Obviously, when it comes to the complaints about dogs barking, zoning really doesn't have much ability to look into that. So the big one was introducing minimum lot sizes, but also looking at potentially should commercial kennels be broken into 2 separate sections. After multiple talks, the work group decided at this time no changes are needed or recommended because we believe everything works well the way it is right now when it comes to the commercial kennel. Agritourism and seasonal uses, we sort of combine those two together, at least when it comes to thought process. So sort of talked about, how can we encourage agritourism and seasonal uses in the zoning code, and should agritourism be defined in the code, and how would we implement the definition in the code? We talked about this again at length, and the end result was, you'll see that in a second, is pretty much not to make any changes at this time with agritourism and seasonal uses. This is just sort of a map that we have showing where some of the seasonal agritourism uses are, And then of course the barn quilts, you see that map on the right. And again, no changes were recommended when it comes to agritourism and seasonal uses. Commercial camping, commercial campgrounds. This is already in our code as a conditional use in the ag zone, and it's not permitted in the conservation zone. So pretty much you can do commercial camping as long as you meet the requirements. And the big one is when it comes to the well and septic aspect of things, because commercial camping is a bigger operation. So this needs to be, anything over 2 tents pretty much means it'll be a commercial camping operation, and they would have to go through the site plan process. So we looked at this to see, should we allow anything smaller? And after multiple talks and looking in different areas, when it, dealing with looking at ag pres aspect, looking at land and resource management, the health department, we decided that at this time, no changes are recommended in commercial camping. Is an allowed conditional use. And so if you want to do anything greater, more than 2 tents, I think it's 2 tents or more, you would have to do a site plan. Anybody can have, I believe, is 1 tent on their property for camping purposes. If somebody wants to camp on a farm, I believe they're allowed to have a tent, 1 tent, 1 site for camping. So no changes were recommended due to the fact that it is a conditional use in our code at this time. We put solar energy in here because it's always changing and there's always things coming about. But after we talked, we decided, since we just introduced the community solar, the code, at this point in time, let's see how that pilot program goes. And if things need to be updated in the future, we will revisit it. But in this point in time, the solar energy in the ag conservation zone we're looking to keep it the way it is based on the community solar ordinance that the commission adopted. So again, no changes are recommended. Another big challenge, accessory dwelling units. A couple of things. Is our code too restrictive with detached accessory dwellings? Should detached accessory dwelling units be able to be rented out? And we've talked about it. So when it comes to the attached, we are updating the definition itself. The wording is not exactly like this, but it's pretty much just in addition to be accessed via not addition, I'm sorry, but the access is via a heated and or cooled livable space no more than 15 feet from the primary dwelling. And I believe also in the concept team, they have looked at a party wall type, could also be considered an attached dwelling depending on how it looks. But the reason we said 15 feet is that is actually sort of the way zoning looks at it today, is 15 feet is a decent number. So it's one of those, you can't say, well, I have a 45-foot patio or a 45-foot deck that I will totally enclose and put a heating unit in there to keep it warm in the winter and have that as attached. So 15 feet is a good round number that we thought of. That says, okay, yes, that makes sense, and it goes along with what zoning administration is currently doing today when it comes to the attached aspect. So we wanted to add that in there just to get a little bit more clarification and people understand when it comes to attached. Now, detached, that there was a lot of discussion, no consensus. There was considerable disagreement on how to proceed. So that one is still in talks. And I believe actually that may be one of the things you'll see you may see on the agenda that next month when I come back on the 19th, I'm sorry, not next month, on the 19th, that will bring forward some areas that we like to maybe have some guidance from Planning Commission on, and the detached accessory dwelling units may be one of those items to see what kind of thoughts the Planning Commission has that could help guide the concept team in moving forward with that aspect. And we also, the other big thing is just the conservation district. I know we talked a lot about the ag and everything is ag conservation. But the big thing is, I mean, should the uses of the conservation district be reevaluated? I mean, if you read over the purpose statement, the way it reads, it is geared, it appears to be geared more toward, more conservation. Obviously you have areas that are hard to develop because of, water supply, woodland areas, environmental features, streams, steep slopes, that type of thing. But if you look at the use table and see some of the things that are in there under conservation, some of those maybe it could sound contradictory to what the purpose of our conservation district appears to be. So that is another thing we're looking at, to look at the use table. And we did that as a group, as a work group, both conservation and ag looked at the use tables to reevaluate to see if those uses still make sense in the zones that are being reviewed. So that's what we're doing is reevaluating the conservation zone, and we'll align the uses more with the conservation land and environmental restrictions that come with the way our purpose statement reads, and what our current lands that are zoned conservation, how those have the environmental restrictions to make more aligned with what we believe is the purpose of the conservation zone. And then clustering. Clustering obviously is allowed in the conservation zone. A minimum of 1 acre. Total number of lots and dwelling units will not exceed the number that are permitted if you would develop it conventionally. So if you have 9 acres, obviously you can't do 3 houses total, because you have 3 1 acre lots. You have to have a road in there somewhere, but give or take, so you'd only be able to do roughly 3 lots. And again, individual lots shall be designed and located to minimize potential environmental degradation of natural resources. So again, looking to have hopefully more open space areas for subdivision trails, that type of thing. So what we came up with is the recommendation from the work group is to mandate clustering in the conservation zone. And so a lot of the feedback we got is a lot of the developers who are looking to do subdivisions in the conservation zone are currently preferring to do the clustering aspect. However, we did put in there that, potentially that we would allow variances could be requested if a developer wishes not to cluster. So we have that in there, but again, we're going to mandate clustering in the conservation zone is the recommendation. So this is just sort of goes over everything I just talked about. I am happy to read it, or if you want, you can sort of glance everything over of everything we went through. So you got the contracts, equipment, storage. We have reviewed and talked about with work group. Country inns. You'll see the events and banquet facility. That is a new use and definition that we're looking to implement. Commercial kennels, agritourism, and seasonal uses, no recommendations. Same thing with commercial camping. The accessory dwelling units, again, the biggest thing was the disagreements and no consensus when it comes to the detached accessory dwelling units. Solar energy, again, we just had the brand new code or ordinance in place, so we're going to leave it as is and see how that goes, and then if should changes need to occur down the road, we will do that. And then look at the conservation zone purpose itself and bring the uses in aligning with what the purpose appears to be. And then, of course, just general recommendations are made to look at the ag and conservation use table today to see if there's any updates, anything that needs to be, added or moved around. So those are just general recommendations. And then clustering in the conservation zone district. So, like Linda said, we're in the process of doing our concept team meetings, and we're doing, I believe, doubling up at least 2 a month now. So in April, today I'm introducing and briefing you all. The 19th is where I'll come back and have ag conservation zoning concerns discussion. And Linda and I and Mary will probably get together to just sort of make sure we have the concerns that we need to bring forward. So in June through August, looking to do 4 planning commission work sessions on the proposed draft legislation, which the concept team is currently doing. Looking to transmit in August, the Peace Planning Commission will transmit their recommendations to the Board of County Commissioners. The Board of County Commissioners through September and October will have their work sessions. In late October, we'll conduct our public hearing. And then in November the goal is to hopefully have the Board of County Commissioners adopt the new ordinance for ag conservation zoning text. And that is it for what the high level quick briefing we're talking about right now with ag conservation. And I'll be happy to answer any questions if you have any.
So Price, this is Jeff. I think that's a great overview. It's nice to know sort of how the timeline is going to work. It's somewhat familiar to us now as we've been through this involving the other areas of the zoning code. Although for Mike Kane, this is all new. So we certainly want to make sure you have every opportunity to ask any questions and get oriented. And I mean, there's some repetition here built into the multiple work sessions we're going to have. So I think that's going to be useful. And as we try to work through some of the things where there's not a consensus, maybe we can raise some questions and have a nice debate about some of these things and flesh out the pros and cons around some of that, and certainly hear what those in the community might think about it as well. So it seems like a really good process, very transparent. Good group of people you've got in your work session too. We've got a lot of voices coming in from a lot of perspectives. So certainly appreciate all the work that they're doing, you're leading, you and your staff. So with that, do any of the other members of the commission have any questions at this point regarding the sort of the introduction we've gotten this evening? Sounds pretty quiet. Pete?
I would ask one question, and this is kind of obscure, Price, but at what point is a farmer running a banquet facility versus just throwing frequent parties for his rowdy friends? At what point do you make that determination?
Well, when we looked at that, it was along the lines of, and it didn't have to be particularly a farmer, because typically the ones, when we had the country inns that came about, and I'm not sure if we had any country inns that have come forward since you've been on, Pete, but it's typically people, even though this is ag conservation land, or in that case, ag land, it's usually not the farmer per se asking to do this. Somebody who either just found some land they think would be good, and they want to do this. So that could be something we could bring back just as a thought to our concept team and work group. But typically, it's the banquet facilities. Everything we've seen, it's more they want to do weddings is what it is. That's the big thing. It's not having a Super Bowl party or a national championship party. It's the place. I mean, I guess you could potentially rent it for that aspect, but it's mostly weddings is the big aspect.
Right, and I guess why I'm asking the question is I have a friend who had a horse farm, and she used to board horses for people, and then she that gradually horses they got tired of doing that, and then her daughter got to the age where she was going to get married, and well, let's fix up the barn and do it. And I'm just curious as to at what point does that become a business where someone like that needs to, call it is. It's a banquet facility. At what point does that happen?
So just a couple things. So with anything, whether it's a banquet facility or under our country and under the current code, you need a site plan. So for it to be officially something, a site plan needs to be, submitted and adhered to. Those other things, if people are going to refurbish a barn and use them for their own personal family parties and get-togethers, I mean, we're not policing that. Obviously, if things are crazy and you see that, a neighbor sees that people are having events all the time, that would have to be a zoning administrator call on that. But I wouldn't focus too much on them doing that because, again, if it's going to go beyond their personal use, a site plan has to be put forward.
All right. Any other questions?
Just a comment. Bryce, thanks. Nice meeting you over the go-to meeting. Is there a way for me to get some additional detail on the backdrop of these initiatives and these discussions, just so I can, get a little bit better understanding of things? Particularly, it sounds like the ADU discussion on detached units is a little heated. I'd like to learn more about that. Are there links or websites or notes or resources I could look at to learn some more about these?
Yeah, there's. I'll go with Linda. I'm sure there's things we were able to. I'll go through the presentations that I did for the work group that I created for that. I'm sure I can share those to give you some background as to what we were talking about, of how things came about with, like you said, the ADUs and that type of thing, especially the detached. But I'm sure, yes,
Yeah.
I'll be happy to get that stuff together for you.
That'd be great. I
And
look forward to reading.
I'm sorry. And it's also on our website, Mike. We've been putting, just as we did with our other efforts, under krrezoning.org is the mission statement of the work group, the booklet that was prepared for that work group. And we also have some meeting notes we can definitely share so you can understand how the work group came to some of the recommendations and where some of the discourse was within the group. So again, that's on our krrezoning.org under the ag.
Gotcha. Okay, great. Thank you.
Anyone else with any questions at this point? Hearing none. Bryce, thank you. Very helpful. Linda, thank you. So with that, Bryce, I think we can turn you loose this evening and move on to item 8, which is the Finksburg Facade Improvement Program. And Linda, did you want to introduce that as well? I know we've got Claire,
Yes.
I think, coming in to do the actual presentation.
Yep, absolutely. So a little bit of background on Finksburg. We, the Planning Commission, adopted a new Finksburg plan in 2013. The Finksburg area, the original plan was for over 6,000 acre area. It's one of our growth areas in Carroll County. And the area is originally envisioned to have water and sewer. Fast forward, it was, I think, a 30-year difference between the first plan in the 80s and the 2013 amended plan, contracted the area from 6,000 plus acres to 640 acres, really focusing on the commercial corridor of the Finksburg area. Finksburg has a really great community organization that's very strong, but the area needs a little help cosmetically. So over the past few years, we've been really working hard to implement the Finksburg Community Comprehensive Plan. And one of the main things that we did to help that was to get them a Sustainable Communities designation. And basically, it's that tool in the toolbox of grant and other funding source opportunities from the state that the county and property owners within the Finksburg area can take advantage of to enhance and promote the area. So with that, there was a grant opportunity to apply for a facade improvement program. Claire Stewart's been the lead on this project along with Tiffany Fawcett. Claire has done such an outstanding job getting this program up and running and now doing the next phase, which is that facade improvement program. I'm very, very proud of the work that staff has done and this program and the possibilities that this program holds for improvements to the look of the Finksburg area. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Claire.
All right, good evening, Planning Commission.
Good evening.
So as Linda said, this is the Finksburg Facade Improvement Program, and I'm just going to run through what this program is and just our next steps. So I'm going to turn my camera off while I'm presenting. Okay. And everyone can hear me okay?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. So in fiscal year 22, the Board of County Commissioners was awarded $50,000 to fund a facade improvement program in the Finksburg designated sustainable community. And Linda was mentioning a little bit about that designation prior to this. So the funding is from Maryland Department of Housing and Community Development's Community Legacy Program. And this is one of 2 funding programs that are offered strictly to those areas designated as sustainable communities. So the goals of this program are to encourage renovation of building facades and signs, improve the appearance of the Finksburg corridor, leverage private improvements by making revitalization efforts affordable and community-based, and preserve and enhance economic vitality of commercial services. So this is a newly created program. It will offer matching grant funds to eligible property owners in Finksburg to improve the appearance of their building facades and signs. And it's implementing the Sustainable Community Action Plan for Finksburg. So the program will offer an incentive dollar amount up to 50% of the total cost of facade and sign renovations, in return for the property owner or business owner's 50% or greater investment. So that's a maximum grant match of $10,000 and a minimum of $500, I'm sorry. So that gives business and property owners a wide range of what kind of funding they can use for projects. And it will be offered on a rolling basis, broken down into grant periods for 2 years or as funding is available. And hopefully this funding flies off the shelf and we can reapply next year. So on top of the matching grant, we can incentivize property owners to make improvements by allowing them to pair this program with Economic Development's Gateway Renovation Tax Credit. And it's very similar to this program, except for it's a tax credit, but the program promotes redevelopment and revitalization of the Finksburg corridor. So I've been working closely with Paige Sunderland, who administers the tax credit for economic development so that we can really get the maximum benefit to the property owners. And then some eligible improvements are building facades and signs. And those projects can include anything from new or replacement awnings, lighting, windows and doors, hardscaping, and so on. The project also supports new signs, sign repair, and removal of outdated signs. And I'll go to the next slide. All right, so this is a map showing the little bit of a greater Finksburg area and then the eligible applicants for this program. So if you can see my cursor, 140 is the darker red line with the reservoir over here to the east, and then 91. So the 140 and 91 is really our crossroads right there. The lighter red line that goes around the perimeter is the designated sustainable community. And then the eligible applicants for this are those properties that are basically highlighted in green with the yellow. So that is any commercial or industrial property that fronts 140 or is adjacent to a property that fronts 140 within the sustainable community boundary. So we've went ahead and created this map and highlighted those properties so that it's easily identifiable for business and property owners as to whether they're eligible or not. And then just wrapping everything up, throughout the process, we've partnered with the Finksburg Planning and Citizens Council, and they are very active in their community, actually through the whole sustainable community effort with getting the designation and drafting the action plan. They've been really great in assisting us and partnering with the county. So we're accepting applications now through May 31st. And we have a website where all of this information can be found. It's finksburgfip.org. On the website is contact information. We have program guidelines, a checklist, and application that's easy to read through for anyone who's interested in applying. We have the previous map that I just showed you. There's a lot of useful links to other county agencies that they may need through the process. So that is all I have for you. Do you guys have any questions?
Actually, Claire, can I share the billboard picture?
Yes, let me stop my screen share.
Okay.
Okay, there you go.
Organizer can make me presenter, thank you. This I just thought was really fun that we were able to do this through the Chamber's website. If you can see my my picture, my email picture here. This is what's on 140 in Finksburg area. It is sponsored by the Chamber, so they allow Chamber members to have billboard time. It's 10 seconds on a 240-second rotation. So this will be up here from April 1 to September 30th. So anyway, I thought that was really exciting that we were able to do that within our budget.
Well, this looks good. You know, we've talked about this before back when we dealt with the Finksburg plan and so forth, but Finksburg in many ways is one of the gateways into Carroll County, and it makes a first impression for some folks as they're leaving Baltimore County and coming into Carroll County. So I'm a big fan of Ina's family there.
Sorry, I didn't mean to see my family.
Yep, looks great. So I'm a big fan of this. I think it's really nice that we can do anything to help the Finksburg community create, an even better first impression as folks are traveling into our county. So Claire, really appreciate the work that's being done on this and the grants, and it helps to facilitate business owners and really just local folks being able to improve how the community looks. That's really good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other comments from the commission members on this?
I agree.
do see.
I'm sorry. I live in Finksburg and very familiar with the area that you're talking about. It's not. It is the gate. It is a gateway, a major gateway, and the businesses along there are pretty strong, I believe. There's not vacant buildings or anything like that. It's just a matter of trying to pretty things up and get them on the same page. I guess that's really my question. How do you get them all on the same page to have, similarities in appearance and things like that? I don't know how that will work. That's a challenge, I guess. But it does need some cleanup, some scrubbing, and things like that. But I'm all for it.
So Mike, you make a good point about that. And years and years and years ago, prior to the adoption of the Finksburg plan, there were design guidelines for the Finksburg area. That's something we've resurrected with this effort as a tool. So as people go forward, property owners, and say, hey, what can we do? What should we do? What would look good? We have those design guidelines as a suggestion for them to follow. So that way we have some more of that uniformity and look.
Excellent.
So again, and Linda, I'll say that's great to hear, because again, I think that's one of the things that when you think about Finksburg and even the Freedom District, I think that's one of the complaints I get is that, dadgummit, we're running out of an opportunity here to create a sense of place and some homogeneity and all that. And so it's great to hear that we have those guidelines. And, I wish there was a way to, and I guess this is where I think we need to be coached up as a planning and zoning commission, is how strongly do we want to push that as a group? Because, I think most of us are property rights people, to invite people into the community. We don't want to be road development. At the same time, quality development at this point in the life cycle of our county, I think is important. because it helps create a sense of community, sense of place. That we're not. I don't know what to say other than to say I think it's great that we've got it, and again, I think I could use a little education in terms of what we're expected to do and what really we want to do as a group. And I don't want to create some sort of groupthink here, but we kind of need to be in concert in terms of, this is what we aspire to be as a county, and have those conversations about, do we want to force people to use brick rather than metal on sidings of buildings, or at least on the front facing side portion of the building? Again, I'm meandering as I do, but again, I could handle being coached up in terms of what are our aspirations, and how strongly do we want to voice that and inform as a commission? Does that make sense? Am I making sense?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think so, Pete. It's another example of a balancing test. Everything in life seems to be a balancing test. Certainly everything we deal with here seems to be a balancing test. And so there's a tension between, individual rights. People want to come in and exercise their own freedoms to do what they want, not have the government interfere. And in this case, we're the government. But at the same time, communities benefit from some consistency and some standards that tend to make the community feel more like a community. So I think, anything that staff can do to help educate us around what those issues are, maybe in more detail, and how we can be aware of that as we try to balance those out, I think would be very helpful.
My turn.
Go ahead.
Okay. So guidelines are guidelines. I don't think that we as a group can say you need to do brick or siding or whatever, but there are some guidelines that people can at least look to. I do notice that on the corner of 91 and 140, where the old I guess bank used to be, and there's some other things, they're doing a big renovation there. So is that part of anything, Claire? Have they put anything in for this facade?
Yeah, I've spoken to the property owner, and so this program calls for approval of an application prior to any improvements being made. So and this project on the corner of 140 and 91 is actually, fortunately for the community, unfortunate for them being able to use the grant money, will be completed pretty soon. So for what they have going on right now, no, but any improvements that haven't been made yet to sign or facade, we would more than welcome an application to look over.
Okay.
All right, Janice, did you have any other comments or questions? All right, Matt, any questions or comments? Mike, anything further?
No, I'm good.
Pete, anything further? All right. My screen is pretty small. Did I miss anybody?
No, I think you have it all.
All right. Claire, thank you. Great presentation. Really appreciate it. Great
Thank
program.
you.
Very good. The last item tonight is general public comment. Do we have anybody who wishes to make any comments? Do we know if anybody's on the line?
No, we do not have any callers in for this evening.
Okay. Very good. Then at this point, I would be happy to entertain a motion for adjournment.
I move we adjourn.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, we have a motion to second. All in favor of adjournment?
Aye.
Aye.
It looks like it's unanimous. Mike, thanks for, we're adjourned. Mike, thank you for joining us. I think you're doing this from your vacation, right?
Yeah, but I'm early on in all this, and I am, it's a learning curve for me, and I'm still on the bottom, so that's okay.
Well, we appreciate you calling in.
No worries.
All right, thank you all. Have a great